G'day guys, I ride Taz. In last week's video we installed this cool Canon universal filter onto the stock airbox throat. We rejetted with a 120 and adjusted the air fuel screws to 3.5 out, and as you saw, it ran really well. This week what I plan to do is take off the tank and take this off, get into the other side of the carb and lift the needle jet. I just have a feeling it's running too lean through that circuit, so by lifting the needle jet it'll run a bit richer and hopefully we just make a little bit more power in the mid-range. While we're at it, I thought I might clip the spring. I've had some experience with lamb spikes before and modifying them, and I find that they are purposely quite sluggish. So if we clip the spring, it'll allow the slide to move up and down faster, and it should be more responsive to the throttle. These are a little bit of a risk because the bike was running so well, but everything's easily reversible. If I find that I've messed up the mixture, we'll just return it back to where it was. We just got to take the seat off, take the tank off, take that off to get to the backs of the carb, the cup that holds the spring and the slide in. Get a few things out of the way. Just cool. This. Yep. There we go. Oh, got it. Perfect. Get this one too. Cool. So there's 7s. I might as well do this tricky side first. Oh, nice. this carb heater out of the way. That one. Oh, nice. They're fairly clean. Take the spring. Okay, so very gently, using no sharp implements, we want to pull this diaphragm out of the sort of retaining groove. These are easily torn and quite expensive. There's our diaphragm. What we need to do is get a blade screwdriver, carefully just break the tension on that. Slide the needle out and see that it has a spring. Just need to remember which way all this goes. There's our needle there, guys. It inserts on the third notch down, and on this one there's actually 5 notches, which I wasn't quite expecting, but different year models have different needles. If you don't have spare notches, basically you just use some M3 washers, slide 2 up, and that gives you the equivalent distance of a notch. In this situation we've got 2 notches to play with. So it's on the third, which is stock, and we're going to put it on the 4th. Click. Okay, so what that does is forces that needle out of that hole, which allows more fuel, so your mid-range will run better. Let's pop that back on. Make sure that's seated correctly. Spring back in the hole. That internal spring is just making sure that the needle is held firmly against the slide. Gently slide that back in. Make sure our little tab lines up, and just gently reposition that. Perfect. What we're going to do here is clip the spring, which allows this to move in and out easier. It's not exponential. The more you cut off, the more throttle response. In my experience, 2 loops of the spring is probably the most you want to cut off. There's 1, 2. So cut it in line with that. That's all you want to take off. Pop that back in there. Just use our rag to wipe out the cover, which is actually quite clean, and we'll just pop it back together. now we do the same thing on the second one. While we're here, we'll just adjust our air fuel screws. So just wind them in, gently seat them. Stock is 2.5 and we're going to go 3.5. So it's half out. 1, half, 2, half, 3, half, half, 1, half, 2, half, 3, half. So we just check that everything feels tight. Throttle works. It'll run super lean, but it starts. So we can start putting the tank back on. With your carbs, you're going to have to adjust the idle. It's that one there. Manual recommends about 1,000 RPM. So you want to turn it so that your tail light and your headlight don't flicker. It's not a Harley, it's designed to rev a bit. So there's not much actually to see, but you can hear that it sounds very purposeful, it sounds quite mean. Best way to test whether it's any better is to put our gear on and go for a ride, guys. I'll be back with you in a second. Starts on the button, incredibly easy. While we take it slow on the dirt. I've been messing around with different mirrors. The underbar ones look fantastic, but oh, it didn't feel safe. You couldn't see in them. So I've put these on for the moment. They provide excellent vision, suit the sort of era of the bike that I'm going for. I don't know if I love them, but they certainly are better than what I had on as far as vision goes. 3, 2, 1. That's really cool. We got up to 100 a lot quicker than what we did last week. So lifting the needle, adjusting the needle jet, it's pretty easy, it's free.
particularly if you've got a slot available. Normally of 6 slots, stock it's in 3 to give you the adjustment up and down for altitude. Messing around, so you've usually got the option to move it up and down. If you don't, it's just a matter of using 2 3mm stainless steel washers, so M3 washers, under the E-clip, which gives you the same amount of lift or drop as what a slot would. So if you pull your needle jet and find that there's no slots left, shim them with some M3 washers, it'll work exactly the same. And you want to put them between the E-clip and the plastic spacer. Also, it gives you the ability to fine tune. If you're messing around, you can put one shim, one M3 washer under the E-clip to give you half a slot. And if you're really going for performance, that might be the difference between too lean, too rich. So it gives you the ability to fine tune your carb. I haven't seen anyone clip the springs on an XVS650 before, but I've certainly done it on other bikes, and it had a huge effect on my XV250 project that I built for my wife. And that's mikuni carb. Basically, this bike's got 2 of them running side by side, and new springs are only $12. So even if I did royally stuff it up, it wasn't going to be a huge investment to return it to stock. The idea of clipping springs is to reduce the pressure on the slide so it can rise and fall easier. As a lamb's bike, a beginner's bike, this has got a really long spring which puts a fair bit of pressure on that slide, and that removes some of the throttle response. So if you're a beginner rider and you accidentally chop the throttle, it won't immediately respond, sort of causing you to lose control. For a more experienced rider, you want that immediate response. You want the carb slide to go up and down a little bit quicker. It's not a linear scale. The more you chop, the better it'll go. My experience is about 2 loops is perfect, and it just gives you noticeably better throttle response. The bike will respond immediately to a twist of the throttle, which makes it more fun to ride, more spirited. So last week's video, the 2 main jets were $13, $6.50 each for 120 from an Australian eBay seller. The card end and filter was about $80–90. I think it was $90. So for basically $100, it's sorted. Lifting the needle is free of charge. At most it would be a couple of cents for those M3 washers, and then clipping the spring free of charge. So for $100, give or take, we have a much more spirited bike to ride, much more fun bike to ride. If you're worried, just leave that spring alone, do the main and the needle. But either way, you won't regret the increase in power and rideability of your bike. It changes the XVS650 from a beginner bike to a fun middleweight cruiser that it is and it should be. So I suppose it's on to slimming down the back end of the bike next, guys. Join me for that adventure. But till I see you next time, my name's Alright Taz. I'm out.